The dead walked the city, and everyone was looking out for themselves. My wife, Chloe, actually demanded that I give the last can of Spam to Randy Jenkins, the neighbor downstairs. I was about to argue when 5-year-old Leo wriggled out from behind her, his small, plump hands clutching and shaking my pant leg. "Daddy, Mr. Jenkins played Spider-Man with me yesterday. If he starves, no one will be the monster for me anymore. You have so much fat on your belly. It's okay if you're hungry for a few days." Carol, my mother-in-law, chimed in, adding fuel to the fire. "That's right. I heard on the radio that the rescue team will be here soon." I shook my head and shoved the Spam into my pocket. They all called me selfish, but there was nothing they could do about it. To prevent the infected from climbing through the window at night, I hadn't slept for 3 consecutive nights. Yet, as soon as I accidentally drifted off, she stole that can of Spam. Looking at the rope still dangling outside the window, I understood. I was about to explode, but she shied away. "He lives on the first floor. He's going out today to try and find food. If he finds any, he'll get it back to you." My hands were shaking with rage, but I didn't even have the strength to start a fight. For the next 7 days, my cat, Jasper, was also starving. He was missing all day, just listlessly lying on the balcony. I was starving, too, surviving by chewing on the fiddle leaf fig tree. Strangely, Chloe, Leo, and Carol seemed quite energetic. One midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I crept into the kitchen, trying to see if they were hiding food from me. In the garbage can, I saw a clump of familiar gray fur. My head buzzed. It was Jasper. I found him as a kitten, and he was usually stuck to me. I burst into the bedroom. I found Chloe and Leo sharing something. Their mouths were slick with grease. Seeing me enter, she hastily hid the bowl behind her back. "Damn it, what are you eating? Where the hell is my cat?" My voice trembled. "How should I know where your cat is? He probably ran off. People are barely surviving, and you're worrying about a cat." "I was eating some smoked ham that the man downstairs gave us. Go ask Randy Jenkins if you don't believe me." Randy Jenkins, always Randy Jenkins. I reached out and grabbed her collar. Just as I was about to press her for more answers, a sudden sharp pain exploded in the back of my head. My vision went black, and I collapsed. As I fell, I saw the ceramic flower pot in my mother-in-law's hand. I touched the back of my head. It was soaked in blood. It's the end of the world, and he's still thinking about that stupid cat. He's useless usually, and he can't even secure food in this situation. Your parents aren't any better than Randy Jenkins, folks. They can't help us at all. When I, who had been beaten unconscious, woke up again, I was tied up hand and foot. The front door was being rammed repeatedly. Thump, thump, thump. The screams of the infected were right outside. Chloe and Carol were dragging my arms together. Leo stood next to them, crying and shouting, "Mom, don't push Daddy out. Daddy will hurt." But he didn't reach out to grab me once. "We have no choice." Chloe's voice was icy cold. "If the infected come in, we'll all die. We just have to sacrifice you." They shoved me hard. My back slammed heavily into a zombie's embrace. Rotten fingers immediately dug into my shoulder. My screams brought me no sympathy. They only cared about themselves. Finally, the infected dragged me downstairs. The last thing I saw before dying was the smiling face of Randy Jenkins peeking from behind the front door. It turned out they were a family long before the outbreak. Only I, the idiot, had maintained this 7-year marriage, only to end up without even bones left. Thank God I was reborn, and I still had plenty of time, clearly an opportunity for a do-over. I didn't even glance at the grocery list Chloe had given me. I drove straight to the nearest big box store. I stuffed the passenger seat and the trunk full of supplies. Inflatable mattresses, large jugs of water, emergency rations, instant noodles, Spam, flashlights, candles, discounted winter coats, and rechargeable batteries. I even drove out to the industrial park to buy a small portable generator. I bought everything I could think of. After all, once the infected arrived, money would be useless. And I definitely wasn't spending another cent on that ungrateful brat and his mother. I originally didn't want to go back home, but realizing my laptop and my cat were still there, I steeled myself and pushed the door open quietly. Chloe was on the phone and didn't hear me return. Her tone was as dismissive as ever. "Heather, I just can't stand it. The people across the hall bought another imported SUV, and she shows off her new designer handbag every day. I told Ethan that working a regular job wouldn't make him any money, and he needs to start a side business, but he refuses. What good is that meager salary of his, anyway?" I clear my throat. I put the shopping bags down by the entryway. Chloe glanced at them, and her perfectly shaped eyebrows immediately knotted together. "Ethan, is this all you bought at the store?" Complaints and accusations rained down on me immediately. Carol heard the commotion and walked out from the inner rooms. In the last life, these two women always looked down on me. They thought my parents, who were only caretakers at a wildlife preserve, were beneath them, and that I was just an ordinary software company employee. They believed their daughter had married down. All my bonuses went to subsidize this family, yet they still complained I was poor and constantly eyed other people's better lives. Carol said in a passive-aggressive tone, "Ethan's back. Oh, no vegetables at all? We'll only be eating instant noodles, then. Poor little grandson of mine. He's growing, and he can't even get a decent meal with meat." I sneered slightly and didn't say anything, heading straight for my home office. Chloe grabbed my shirt. "My mother asked you a question. Where are your manners? And where are the imported strawberries I asked for? And the box of cherries? Did you forget them all?" "Nope." I pointed at 2 large rolls of toilet paper. "I bought these. Hopefully, they can soak up the water in both your brains." The fire in her eyes ignited instantly. "Ethan Miller, are you trying to end this marriage? It's bad enough you insult me, but you dare talk to my mother like that." It looked like she wanted to start a huge argument, but time was short and my mission critical. I had no interest in wasting any more breath on her. I packed up my laptop and a few frequently read books, stowing them in my backpack. "Cut the bullshit, Chloe. I'm asking you, where's Jasper?" I hadn't seen my cat since I returned, and I was frantic. In the last life, they must have followed Randy Jenkins' suggestion, secretly kill my Jasper, and turn him into jerky. Then they lied to me, claiming it was Randy's smoke ham. In this life, I had to save Jasper. Only trash owners raise a filthy cat. She was sharpening her claws on my handbag, so I locked her on the balcony for a timeout. Do you know how expensive that bag was? I rushed to the balcony. The wind and rain were lashing down, and they hadn't even secured the windows or the sliding door. Deep autumn in Portland was wet and cold. Jasper was huddled in a corner among a pile of junk. No food, no water. Chloe hadn't even moved his litter box. I quickly scooped Jasper into his carrier bag and slung it over my shoulder. Chloe's face was beet red, and she looked ready to explode with curses. I cut her off. "Shut up. Don't ask. Between you and the cat, I choose the cat. Starting today, I'm living with the cat. If you want a divorce or want to split the assets, do whatever you want." Chloe became agitated. "Ethan, you are looking for trouble. You said it. If you walk out that door, don't come crawling back." "Huh. If I didn't walk out that door, then I'd regret it." For it was now 1:13 p.m. I needed to find a new hiding place. Chloe had a spare key to my car, so my supplies weren't safe there either. Rain hammered against the car window, cracking sharply. I still remembered the horrible fate of people who tried to hide in cars in the last life. My light-bodied Japanese sedan certainly couldn't withstand the infected's gnawing. Jasper meowed urgently inside his carrier. I suddenly remembered. I forgot to bring his cat food. I locked the car and walked into the neighborhood convenience store to buy some. "Ethan, grab what you need. Just scan it yourself." Gus Peterson, the owner, was on the phone complaining about high costs. He was saying he didn't want to keep renting these private garages as storage units anymore. "Gus, how many months are left on your lease?" The owner paused. "Ethan, 3 months left. You interested in taking it over? I'll transfer the lease to you at the original price, $2,500. There's still some inventory in there. I'll hire someone to move it out tomorrow." Gus was a genuinely good man. In the previous life, he constantly provided food and supplies to the tenants, free of charge. He delivered water and instant noodles to the lonely elderly, saving the lives of many ungrateful people. In the end, his store was overrun and he became one of the infected. I immediately paid him $7,500 for the 3 months' rent. I headed back to my car to start moving the supplies. Gus's garage was very close to my apartment. A white SUV was parked nearby, completely blocking the emergency exit. Extremely selfish parking. I didn't think much of it, quickly pulling down the steel roll-up door. I set up a comfortable shelter for myself and Jasper. My phone kept buzzing. It was Chloe calling. I knew without answering that she wanted me to pick up Leo from preschool. In this weather and traffic, everything was jammed up, but she never considered how hard it was for me to leave work. She'd always expect me to pick up not just our son, but often the children of her poker buddies, too. If I was delayed, I'd inevitably get yelled at. I simply turned off the phone. That little brat didn't even look like me anyway, and he always sided against me. Let whoever wants to pick him up. It was now 4:00 p.m. I opened the traffic app on my computer and saw the interstate leading from Seattle into Portland was starting to congest. The alarming black and red road markers reminded me that the initial invasion came from Seattle. The warehouse was stacked with some of the convenience store owners' miscellaneous items and expired products. While inspecting them, I cut my hand. I realized I had completely forgotten to stock up on medicine. I checked my watch. There was still time. At that moment, the preschool teacher called. "Is this Leo's dad?" Why hasn't anyone picked up Leo today? Look at the time. Call his mom. I'm out of state. I blocked the numbers for the teacher and Chloe. After checking the warehouse, I went to a nearby pharmacy to buy medicine. A young woman in a waterproof jacket was also frantically buying emergency supplies and bandages. I subtly moved closer to her and quietly asked, "Are you preparing for tonight too?" Her eyes flashed with caution, and she didn't answer. "I don't mean any harm. You're about to clear out all these medications. Could you possibly save a few boxes for me? Enough for 2 people to last until next week." My words carried significant information, a test, and also a disclosure. I believe she would realize that we belonged to the same camp. Next week meant 7 days from now. The rescue team would sweep the infected out of the city and protect all survivors. The girl still said nothing, alertly typing 2 words on her phone. Reborn? I nodded. Her eyes immediately welled up. Her name was Vivian Lee. In her previous life, her parents, in order to save her younger brother, not only gave him all the food, but also locked Vivian in the bedroom with an infected person when it climbed through the window. I lit a cigarette and asked, "Are you going back there?" She shook her head resolutely. Looking at the enormous backpack slung over her shoulders, I knew she was ready this time, too. Neither of us harbored thoughts of revenge. We just wanted to protect ourselves in the chaos. At 6 p.m., the congested red spots on the map were getting closer to the city limits. It wasn't hard to imagine what those unfortunate drivers were encountering. I had already taken Vivian back to the hideout. She even reminded me to stock up on vitamins, calcium supplements, tarps, a deck of cards, and a shovel. Gus, the convenience store owner, had been waiting in the pitch-black garage for a long time. "Why no lights?" Vivian whispered. I said, "We can't let anyone know there are people in here." Now having 2 witnesses, Gus finally progressed from initial skepticism to firm conviction, slapping me on the shoulder. This time, I absolutely will not worry about their miserable lives. The 3 of us reached an unspoken consensus in this extreme environment. 7, the rain showed no sign of letting up, and the garage grew darker and darker. The emergency alert notification finally appeared on my phone. The first sounds of commotion, hurried footsteps, drifted in from outside the apartment complex. My phone started vibrating incessantly again. It was Carol, my mother-in-law. How had I forgotten to block that old crone? I hit reject immediately. A text message followed. "Ethan, the child got rain on and has a fever. Where the hell are you? Didn't you see the news? Don't you know what's happening? You're still out roaming. Get your ass back here." That was familiar, Chloe. Need something? Call me. Doesn't need anything? Criticize me. I deleted and blocked her number in one swift motion. I even blocked Leo's smartwatch contact. In 2 hours, our apartment complex would be overrun with the infected. Gus's phone was ringing off the hook, too. They were all neighbors wanting to grab supplies. He ignored everyone, muttering, "Let them fight over it," but his hands honestly switched on the security camera feed for the store. Who wouldn't watch a spectacle? Vivian and I crowded around. The store's roll-up door had already been hacked open with a fire axe, bent and mangled. The shelves were swarming with people. Randy Jenkins, who usually looked like a skinny rail, was suddenly possessed by brute strength. He elbowed 2 elderly people aside and rushed toward the innermost shelves, shoving instant food into his arms. I was watching, waiting to see what embarrassing spectacle he'd cause next, when 2 familiar figures burst into the frame. Chloe and my mother-in-law. Chloe's hair was messy. None of her usual fastidious perfection was left. Her eyes locked onto Randy Jenkins. She grabbed Carol and charged over. After a quick exchange, Randy shared some of the stolen goods with them. In the last life, the supplies I brought back only lasted 2 days, so they wouldn't have endured this misery. Everyone had abandoned their dignity. Crushed instant noodles and damaged packages of rice were quickly looted. As soon as Randy Jenkins filled the cardboard box in his arms, the head of security raised a heavy iron pot and slammed it onto his skull. Randy stumbled, dazed, falling to the ground. He was then trampled by several people rushing past. He deserved it. The old woman he had nearly pushed over moments ago was the security captain's mother. As the community broadcast system blared its warnings, the staff's voices growing hoarse, advising everyone, "Do not go out. Do not crowd. Lock your doors and windows. Do not make any sound." The crowd finally dispersed. The convenience store returned to silence. Night had completely swallowed the city. 8-foot Gus, do you regret losing all that stuff? Vivian suddenly asked. Gus scratched his head and shook it. Those are just possessions. These people have lost their minds before they even get bitten. I won't hold it against them. He looked at me and added, "Thank you, buddy." Before I could reply with modesty, a sudden, heavy pounding came from outside. It was a slamming against the roll-up door, echoing loudly in the rainy night. Idiots. They were tired of living, and now they wanted to draw the infected toward us. Ethan, open up. I know you're in there. It was Chloe's voice, but she shouldn't have that much strength. Gus frantically extinguished his phone screen. We all held our breath. The noise outside seemed to cease. They were probably listening for us. At that moment, Jasper, who had been sleeping, arched his back. He rubbed his head against me, purring, just about to meow, when Vivian attracted his attention with her fidgeting fingers. The people outside lost patience and continued shouting. Ethan, are you crazy? I can forgive you for ignoring Leo's fever, but leaving us behind and hiding here yourself? I knew it. You didn't bring back any of the groceries I asked for. You stashed all the good stuff in the garage, didn't you? Hand it over now. Don't think you're safe in there. Then Randy Jenkins' voice was heard, attempting to calm them. Don't rush. Don't stress yourselves out. I'll figure out how to open this door. I gripped the shovel tight. I stood 3 feet back from the garage door, waiting. Gus's monitor showed Randy Jenkins holding a pry bar, bending down and trying to shove it under the roll-up door. He had even called in a few other neighbors who hadn't managed to loot supplies. None of them looked friendly. The garage would be breached soon. The roll-up door was slowly pried open by the bar, making a terrible, screeching noise. On the monitor, Randy Jenkins and his accomplices were soaked in sweat and rain. Chloe and Carol were standing by, cursing. Almost there, almost there. Carol's voice floated through the crack in the door. That deadbeat must be hiding something good. I haven't divorced him yet. Half of his assets are mine. I stared at the time in the bottom right corner of the monitor, gripping the shovel tightly. Vivian was soothing the increasingly restless Jasper, but her eyes never left the screen. Half an hour passed. My legs were numb. Then, with a loud kerbang, the roll-up door was pried open just enough. Randy Jenkins squeezed through first. He shone his phone flashlight wildly around the space. The beam swept across the empty garage, finding only a pile of dusty, old boomboxes in the corner. Where is he? Where's the stuff? He froze for 2 seconds, then roared. Ethan, you bastard. Did you trick us? Chloe and Carol's faces instantly turned ashen at the sight. Randy Jenkins threw the pry bar onto the ground. I saw him sneaking in here and moving things this afternoon. Suddenly, deafeningly loud pop music, a viral TikTok hit, a chaotic mix of upbeat synth and ridiculous meme sounds, blasted forth, echoing in the empty garage. I smirked at the monitor, internally cursing, idiots. When I was moving the supplies this afternoon, I noticed the white SUV blocking the fire exit. It was Randy Jenkins' car. Though I couldn't see the person clearly, his phone screen seemed to be illuminated. Since he saw me, I decided to give him a little gift. Right after Randy Jenkins got out of the car, I asked Gus to switch me to the bigger warehouse next door. We moved all the supplies. The 3 of us then strategically stacked expired flour bags and abandoned shelves against the steel door of that warehouse. This empty garage was prepared specifically as bait for them. The loud music tore through the rainy night. I believe they had already heard the dragging footsteps and the horrifying screams of the infected getting closer. Carol reached out to cover the speaker, but the effort was useless. Randy Jenkins panicked. He grabbed the pry bar and slammed it viciously onto the boombox, hitting Carol's arm instead. She clutched her arm, her expression distorted like an abstract painting. That one broke, but another boombox immediately blared to life. This time it was even louder, featuring snippets of annoying viral pop songs mixed with intermittent emergency alert broadcasts. They're done for. The infected are in the complex. Vivian whispered, pointing to the top right corner of the monitor screen. That view showed the convenience store's external camera feed, located on the complex's main drive. A few shuffling black shapes were moving toward the garage. Their rotten arms dangled. Their feet seemed twisted, and strings of putrid flesh hung from their mouths. Chloe grabbed Carol and bolted for the door, losing a shoe in the process. The desperate neighbors who had followed Randy Jenkins and were suddenly shoved by Randy into the grasp of an infected security guard blocking the exit. The guard immediately opened its mouth, dripping black blood, and bit into the neighbor's neck. Even from the adjacent warehouse, I could hear the scream. Screams of rejection, screams of pain, and heavy dragging footsteps ripped apart the rainy night. The man thrashed on the ground twice before falling silent. Blood pulsed from the wound on his neck. They were terrified out of their minds. But Chloe and Carol exchanged a look. Chloe stuck out her foot and tripped 2 other people. Sorry, neighbors, my grandson is waiting for us at home. We'll burn you some incense later. The 2 neighbors were tripped, and the infected, like dogs spotting food, leaped onto them. In a last life, I was as miserable as these 2 people. Yet, I had never harmed anyone. Randy Jenkins, Chloe, and Carol took advantage of the chaos and ran out, stumbling toward the residential building entrance. Only then did I finally let go of the shovel. Ethan, Gus, want some hot pot meat? Gus looked at the frozen, white and red shaved lamb slices in her hand. He suddenly rushed to squat in the corner and began dry heaving. His face was so white he didn't need a spotlight. In the last life, he was too kind-hearted, which led to his demise. But he didn't have those residual memories. Hearing the scratching at the door and seeing the scene with his own eyes had truly shocked him. He likely wouldn't be able to eat anything for a while. I patted his shoulder. You don't need to sympathize with them. Bad people have 9 lives. See? They managed to escape. Gus waved a pain hand. I'm fine, but I think I saw your wife's arm get scratched by one of the infected. Will she turn? What? I had felt a pang of disappointment when they escaped, but now I only regretted blocking her too early. I wouldn't be able to watch her transformation process in person. Vivian handed a bottle of water to Gus, saying nothing. Having experienced betrayal from her own parents, she understood better than anyone how common selfishness was in the apocalypse. It could happen between friends, between neighbors. It could even shatter the bonds of kinship. Ethan, this is terrifying. Thank goodness. Seeing him about to start rambling, I quickly interrupted. Hold it. Just drink your water. We should be thanking you for taking us in and for stocking all this good stuff in this warehouse. The 3 of us took turns standing guard, listening to the movements outside. Many cell towers were down, and the signal was terrible. City traffic had completely collapsed. The only way to receive external information was the radio. Clearly, we needed to hold out here for 7 days until rescue arrived. Before going to sleep, Gus suddenly asked me, what exactly did you go through in your previous life to be so ruthless toward your wife and son? I forced a wry smile and recounted everything that happened in the past life. Even Vivian, who had been quietly listening, started to tear up. She stroked Jasper's head, full of pity. They actually ate Jasper, forced you to give your last can of Spam to the neighbor, and then used you as a doorstop. Just like my parents, it's monstrous. They say the first thing to lose in the apocalypse is compassion. But this wasn't just a lack of compassion. This was the behavior of animals. If I had to blame anyone, I blamed myself for loving and trusting the wrong person all those years ago. On the first night of the end of the world, none of us slept. The sky gradually brightened. Sunlight began to slip in through the cracks of the roll-up door. 11 The infected tend to be active at night and slower during the day. As long as they didn't hear movement, they generally wouldn't actively attack humans. Vivian and Gus finally succumbed to exhaustion, leaning against the flour sacks. Suddenly, the roar of an engine sounded outside. It was Randy Jenkins. Hearing the engine, Gus and Vivian jolted awake. Quick, pack everything up. I grabbed the cat and shoved him into my backpack. Just as I finished packing, the roll-up door began to shake violently. The lock was clearly broken. The monitor showed the car slowly backing up. Randy Jenkins yanked open the car door, and Chloe followed him out. Gus looked nervous, ready to swing the shovel in his hand at any moment. I warned them. I'll handle Chloe. She's the most dangerous. Gus, you take Randy. Vivian, here are my car keys. The second the door opens, run, don't worry about us. Get in the car and drive toward the main gate. Before I finished speaking, the roll-up door was yanked open. Randy Jenkins lunged toward our stash of supplies. Chloe's face was flushed red, her eyes vacant, as if she were burning up with fever. But she still managed to try and curse me. Ethan, you hoard food and supplies and refuse to help me and our son. You want us to die at home? Are you even a man? I'm a man, but I'm not your man anymore. Before she could finish, I threw the waterproof tarp over her head. She was completely covered, kicking and struggling frantically. On the other side, Gus didn't need to fight Randy. Randy's only target was the supplies. We exchanged a look. Ignoring Randy, we immediately sprinted out. The loud noise of him ramming the door would certainly attract the infected. Reborn once, I had no desire to be eaten again. Rustling sounds came from the nearby bushes. Gus and I were running at maximum speed. I saw my car parked in the same spot. I skidded to a stop, opening the door to find Vivian sitting in the passenger seat. She looked anxious, relieved only when she saw us approach. Ethan, I don't know how to drive a stick shift. Why hadn't I asked that one crucial question? I quickly locked the car door and pressed her head down. Stay down, both of you. Don't breathe. Staying perfectly still was the safest option right now. Because I just saw a zombie with permed hair, wearing a sundress, and sporting heavy eyeliner, shuffling awkwardly toward us. I covered my nose and mouth, holding my breath. The zombie's eye had been knocked crooked, yet she kept circling our car. At that moment, Gus whispered, "Call me." My phone ringtone is deafeningly loud. I immediately understood. The sound of Gus's phone ringing erupted from the garage. The infected woman's head snapped up, rotating 360 degrees toward the noise, and she instantly shambled off toward the garage. That was close. Just as I was about to hit the gas, a whole crowd of infected started staggering toward the car. Randy Jenkins' screams pierced the rain. In the rearview mirror, I saw an infected finger sink directly into his arm, tearing off a piece of bloody flesh. He cried out in pain, and the box of instant noodles in his hands dropped. He wanted to retrieve it, but he also wanted to live. Blood streamed down, dyeing his entire sleeve red. Chloe, struggling in the tarp, had managed to crawl out. Her black pupils had faded to white, and she could barely stand. She crawled toward my car, her hands desperately clutching the tire edge. "Ethan, open the door. Open up. Let me hide in the car. It was wrong of me to let Randy steal the supplies. I'll give it all to you. Everything." She clearly didn't remember the disgusting betrayal of the past life. She only knew that I was the only one who could save her right now. I didn't move. The Chloe right now was a battlefield of warring reason and madness. Since she was bitten last night, she theoretically wouldn't last much longer. Vivian, unable to watch, quietly asked me, "Are you really going to watch her like this?" I simply hummed in affirmation. It's not that I won't save her. It's that she can't be saved. Randy Jenkins was being pulled apart by 2 infected security guards. His knees scraped bloody trails on the concrete road. His fingernails were torn off as he roared. "Ethan Miller, you're leaving me to die? You'll rot in hell. You think you're going to get away with this? You sneaky son of a..." Before he could finish the phrase, he could no longer speak. He ceased to even be a viable host for the infection. Half of his body flopped into the mud with a splash. Chloe saw she couldn't open the driver's side door. In desperation, she hit the key fob in her pocket, which unlocked the passenger door. She saw Vivian huddled in the seat. "Oh my God, you scared me." Vivian sat up and delivered a hard kick. It landed squarely on Chloe's stomach, sending her sprawling a good distance away. I quickly started the car, but my hand was shaking so badly it took forever to engage D-gear. Chloe had already struggled to her feet. "Ethan, are you insane? I'm your wife. Fine, don't save me, but what about Leo? Are you abandoning him too?" If she hadn't mentioned Leo, I would have been fine, but bringing him up instantly enraged me. That brat didn't look like me fine, but he was never affectionate with me growing up. One day when I got home from work, I saw Leo actually riding on Randy Jenkins' back, pretending he was a horse. Even when the supplies were almost depleted in the previous life, they still believed I could endure hunger with my own body fat. I deserved to give my portion of spam to Randy Jenkins downstairs. Now, I was certain he wasn't my son. Chloe continued screaming and cursing outside the window. Then her voice suddenly cut off. She couldn't produce human sounds anymore. Her body started twitching uncontrollably. Her fingers began twisting and deforming. But she must have retained some residual maternal instinct for Leo. She slowly walked, step by step, toward the entrance of our apartment building. 7 years of marriage. In the end, she failed to remain human. 12 and nearly transformed, Chloe repeatedly slapped the entrance door. Hair disheveled. Her speech was thick and incoherent. Our apartment was on the 2nd floor, directly above Randy Jenkins' unit. In the last life, Randy's parents clearly knew about the dirty relationship between these 2 schemers. Instead of condemning their son, they pretended ignorance and allowed it. I felt no sympathy for them, either. But I was always a good Samaritan at heart. I decided to send Chloe home. I slowly rolled down the window and tossed the building's key fob toward the entrance. Chloe awkwardly picked it up and successfully got inside. Carol, my mother-in-law, had been watching from the window, knowing they went out for food. She saw Randy Jenkins being torn apart. Now she could hear Chloe screaming at the door downstairs. She had been relieved to have the security of the main entrance door, but now that too was under attack. Leo's faint crying was clearly drawing Chloe in. She howled indistinctly while pounding on our unit's front door. Carol leaned out the window, panic-stricken. She waved frantically at my car. None of her usual sarcastic, disdainful demeanor remained. She desperately pleaded for me to save her. Finally, she broke down and yelled, "Ethan, my good son-in-law, for the sake of Leo calling you dad for 5 years, save Leo. Chloe isn't right. She's right outside the door. I was wrong before, son. If you just save Leo, I'll bow down to you. I'll work like a slave for the rest of my life." I felt a wave of profound awkwardness. I glanced at Gus. Neither of us spoke. The rain had stopped, and the sky was intensely blue. Groups of infected, drawn by the faint sound of music from the garage and Carol's desperate cries, surrounded the apartment building completely. Gus frowned, watching from the back seat. He was about to say something when I gently shook my head. 13, the car, cautiously drove out of the complex and proceeded slowly down the road. Everything was devastated. Broken glass, torn clothing, and scattered shoes lay everywhere. Where to now? Vivian and Gus asked simultaneously. Osprey Key. Gus finally relaxed, leaning back in the rear seat. Vivian held Jasper, who purred contentedly in her arms. I focused on the road ahead, driving toward Osprey Key, the nature reserve my parents had guarded their entire lives. It was also the survivor rendezvous point in the previous life. The sky after the rain was stunningly blue. We didn't dare stop, driving straight to the riverside. Osprey Key was some distance from the bank. Trees covered the island, lush and green. My parents had dedicated the better part of their lives there. My dad had even cleared a vegetable patch on the island. I couldn't promise gourmet meals, but potatoes and sweet potatoes would keep us fed. In the distance, I saw several figures in camouflage waving at us. Soon, a small boat was headed our way. A lump formed in my throat. When I was trapped in the apartment complex in the last life, my parents organized survivor self-rescue on the island. They waited for news of me until the official rescue arrived, but I never showed. 14, night fell. The wetlands and the river surrounding Osprey Key acted as a barrier against the infected. My parents looked well. My mom excitedly prepared me a bowl of cold sliced tomatoes with sugar. It tasted so good I nearly cried. Gus cooked instant noodles for everyone, adding 2 slices of Spam. Jasper was chasing bugs and birds, having a grand time. The scene was perfectly peaceful, like a camping trip. Vivian suddenly stood up, her eyes red-rimmed. I exchanged a meaningful look with Gus, and we both followed her. She had endured abandonment and betrayal by her parents in the last life. Seeing us, a happy, harmonious family, must have been difficult for her. Vivian, you won't be going back to that family, will you? She paused, turning back, and nodded slightly. My dad probably still has some cheap whiskey hidden somewhere. Let's just swear an oath and become siblings. My dad has complained since I was born that I wasn't a girl. They'll definitely treat you like their daughter. Tears rolled down Vivian's cheeks. The 3 of us stacked our right hands together, promising to share fortunes and endure hardships together. But we also agreed that if anyone was bitten, they must be abandoned immediately. No dragging anyone else down. The bitten person needed to run as far as possible while they were still conscious. This decision was cruel, but it was the foundation of survival. Goose, eat down. Thank you. No problem. Seize. The cheap whiskey burned going down, and everyone laughed together. The salty, damp wind blew, messing up our hair. My dad had just finished assigning the night watch rota. Osprey Key was fair. Everyone took turns guarding. You had to work with your own 2 hands to earn your food. Even Jasper was stationed in the storehouse to guard against mice stealing our limited corn. I lay on the damp ground, gazing at the scattered lights of the distant city. Finally, the betrayal, the scheming, the suffering, and the tragedy of the last life felt like the end that appears after the credits roll. They were truly gone. Starting tomorrow, every day would be brand new.